There are moments when you feel it, a presence near you that disturbs the air, that chills the warmth in a room without ever speaking. You cannot explain it, but your body knows. Something is off. Something unseen is watching, waiting. This is not superstition. It is the wisdom of the soul, whispering of danger before the mind can understand. Because evil rarely arrives with horns and fire. It wears the face of reason, the tone of charm, the disguise of care. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And if that is true, then some souls have soaked so long in bitterness, jealousy, and deceit that their very presence stains the light around them. You must learn to see these souls, to recognize the 9 signs that evil stands beside you, before it reaches inside you. Not all smiles mean safety. Some smiles are masks stretched over hunger. There are those who mimic joy, not to share it, but to blend in, predators among the content." Seneca wrote, "The worst evil is to leave the herd and be alone in the truth. And that is why the false-hearted learn to hide. They mirror goodness so they can approach it unnoticed. They learn laughter without sincerity, empathy without emotion, and words that sound like care but are carved from calculation. You will know them not by what they say, but by what you feel after they speak. If their presence drains your spirit, if your confidence fades after their praise, you have been touched by their poison." The Stoic does not confront every deceiver. He observes. He withdraws, for to fight the mask is to feed the actor. Instead, see them clearly and choose distance. Truth needs no audience, it only needs protection. There are souls who find peace only in the ruin of others. They cannot rest in calm, for calm reminds them of their emptiness. And so they stir storms where none exist. They whisper, they provoke, they divide, not for gain, but for the sheer pleasure of control. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. But these people know that if they can distort your judgment, they can disturb your peace. They will invent stories, twist meanings, turn friends into strangers, and strangers into enemies. You cannot reason with chaos. You cannot heal a heart that feeds on harm. So the Stoic remains still. He lets the storm exhaust itself. He does not shout into thunder. He builds his house upon the rock. Evil often disguises itself as concern. Beware those who come bearing warnings about everyone but themselves. Their care is counterfeit and their calm an illusion. They only find life in your unrest. The antidote is simplicity. Do not match their noise. Do not chase their lies. Withdraw into silence and let your composure expose their chaos. The flatterer with hidden blades, beware those who praise too quickly, too perfectly, too often. Flattery is not affection, it is a net. It entangles the ego first, then tightens around your judgment. Seneca wrote, "An honest adversary is better than a false friend, for the adversary sharpens your reason, but the flatterer dulls it. He mirrors your vanity, and before you know it, you mistake reflection for admiration. There is nothing more dangerous than the one who tells you only what you wish to hear. They will elevate you to the edge of a cliff, then step aside when you fall." The Stoic must distrust excessive praise. He must learn to seek correction over comfort. For truth builds, flattery blinds, and blindness to the truth is the first victory of the wicked. True friendship is simple, steady, unadorned. It does not flatter, it reflects. It does not seduce when it strengthens. When words come wrapped in gold, check for the rust beneath. The master of guilt, there is a kind of evil that does not strike. It manipulates. It convinces you that your pain is your fault, that their cruelty is your punishment, that to question them is to wound them. They are masters of guilt, architects of invisible prisons. They will twist virtue into weakness, compassion into obedience, and kindness into chains. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The manipulator will make you forget what good even means. They will turn your conscience into a leash and call it love. But guilt is not always proof of wrong. Sometimes it is evidence of corruption nearby. Evil thrives not by overpowering the strong, but by confusing the good. The Stoic learns to separate responsibility from control. You are responsible for your actions, not their interpretations. You are answerable for your words, not their distortion. You owe peace to your soul, not comfort to your captors. Forgive yourself for the kindness they weaponized. It was not weakness, it was evidence that your soul still remembers light. The empty soul some people walk among us hollow. No joy, no conviction. No truth. They mimic laughter, but it never reaches their eyes. They speak of love, but their touch chills instead of warms. They are not monsters, they are voids. And the void is hungry. Seneca wrote, "He who does not have a goal in life is like a ship without a rudder." These people drift, and because they drift, they crash into others. They feed on attention, validation, control, anything that reminds them they exist. The Stoic response is not hatred, it is caution. Do not try to fill their emptiness with your energy. Do not try to fix what only self-awareness can heal. You cannot save those who refuse reflection. Evil is not always malicious, none. Sometimes it is merely vacant. But whether through malice or apathy, the destruction of peace through proximity, distance again is virtue. For solitude when chosen is power, and silence when understood is sanctuary. Evil is not always in the sword. Sometimes it hides in the smile. It can sit beside you, dine with you, speak of virtue while plotting deceit. But the Stoic does not hate it, he recognizes it. He studies the shadows without fear because he has mastered his own. Evil often walks with a quiet step. It does not announce itself with rage or violence. It slithers and softly, through admiration turned sour, through friendship turned comparison, through love turned possession. In every age, there is one poison that devours humanity from within, envy. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But envy corrupts thought itself. It takes joy in others and turns it into grievance. It whispers that life is unfair, that your neighbor's light is proof of your darkness. Envy cannot rejoice in virtue. It resents it. It cannot love what it wishes to become. The envious soul does not always hate you openly. Often it will disguise its hunger in praise. They will smile at your success and secretly hope for your failure. They will celebrate your rise while sharpening the knife of comparison. Seneca wrote, "He who envies others does not obtain peace of mind." And yet, envy pretends to be justice. It tells the weak, "You deserve more than they have." It tells the angry, "You have been wronged." It whispers until resentment feels like righteousness. The envious man cannot see virtue clearly. He sees it only as an accusation. The excellence of others reminds him of his neglect. The success of others exposes his stagnation, and so he seeks not to grow, but to destroy what reflects his own failure. Beware the friend who cannot celebrate you. Beware the companion who claps but whose eyes remain cold. They will stay close, not to support your rise, but to witness your fall. The Stoic response is not pride, it is pity, for envy is self-inflicted blindness. It cannot see beauty without turning it to bitterness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste the remainder of your life on the imagination of what others think of you. To seek approval from the envious is to beg the blind to admire color. Walk in your virtue regardless. Let your peace be your protection." There are those who cannot live without deceit, not because they always intend to harm, but because truth terrifies them. Truth holds a mirror, and what they see there, they cannot bear. So they build new faces, mask upon mask, until even they forget which one is real. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. But what if provocation comes in the form of deceit? Then your task is not to fight the liar, but to see through him. The liar's weapon is not the falsehood itself. It is the confusion it creates. They scatter half-truths like dust, so you spend your time brushing your eyes instead of watching the road ahead. They thrive in distortion, for distortion creates control. The more you question your memory, your worth, your clarity, the easier you are to rule. This is why evil loves lies. Lies rewrite reality, and those who control perception control people. But the Stoic stands apart. He knows that lies cannot touch what is inwardly true. He knows that clarity is not given, it is guarded. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." For him, virtue was not a sermon, and it was a shield. Every lie that passes through your lips is a crack in your armor, and the first lie told to others is always preceded by one told to yourself. So the Stoic remains precise with words, for he knows that speech is the fingerprint of the soul. He measures before he answers, for words once spoken cannot be recalled. Seneca reminded, "Language is the dress of thought." Guard your words as you guard your spirit. For if your tongue becomes careless, soon your mind will follow. The corruption of envy and lies combined. When envy and deceit unite, a darker thing is born, malice. The envious see what you have. The deceitful invent what you don't. Together, they rewrite your story in their image. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone can show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." But envy and deceit cannot bear correction. They thrive only in blindness. They cannot coexist with truth, so they distort it, destroy it, bury it beneath noise. When the world believes their lie, do not despair. Because truth is not voted upon, it endures in silence until the noise collapses. Seneca wrote, "Time discovers truth, so let time be your ally." The Stoic knows that patience is not weakness, it is strategy. He does not rush to defend his honor. He lives it. He does not argue to prove his innocence. His life does it for him. In a world ruled by envy and lies, truth becomes rebellion. Peace becomes power. Stillness becomes defiance. Epictetus said, "When someone is properly grounded in life, they will not look outside themselves for approval." And so the Stoic turns inward, not in retreat, but in resistance. He cleanses his thoughts of resentment, his tongue of falsehood, and his heart of envy. The Stoic antidote: evil feeds on reaction. It grows through attention. It dies in clarity. The antidote to envy is gratitude. The antidote to deceit is truth lived daily. And the antidote to evil itself is awareness, to see without hatred. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. So do not answer envy with envy. Do not respond to deceit with deceit. Simply be different. Let your virtue become their silence." Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Evil wins when it makes you imagine it everywhere. So see it clearly, but let it stop at the edge of your mind. Do not carry the serpent in your thoughts. Let it crawl outside where it belongs. And walk onward, steady, untouchable. Because in the end, truth is not something you argue for, and it is something you become. And virtue is not shouted. It is lived quietly every day in the presence of shadows. Evil cannot exist without deceit, and deceit cannot survive without envy. But once seen, truly seen, they lose their power. For light, once revealed, can never again be forgotten. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Marcus Aurelius. There is a kind of evil that does not destroy through chaos, but through admiration. It wraps itself in beauty, in eloquence, in certainty. It stands tall, unshaken, admired. But beneath the surface burns a cold flame, a hunger not for love but for worship. This is the narcissist. And close behind him walks the predator of weakness. Together they do not seek blood. They seek control. For some souls feed not on food or drink, but on the energy, attention, and submission of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." But the narcissist cannot comprehend mortality. He worships himself as if the sun would rise by his command. He mistakes applause for virtue, praise for peace, and admiration for meaning. He is not always powerful in station, but powerful in illusion. He constructs a world where he is the center, and all others are mirrors reflecting his chosen light. The Stoics warned that ego is the first corruption of the soul. Seneca said, "He who praises himself will soon find few who will praise him." For arrogance blinds a man not only to humility, but to truth itself. He cannot endure the indifferent. He cannot tolerate silence, for silence confronts him with emptiness, and emptiness is the only enemy he cannot conquer. To the narcissist, people are not companions. They are reflections. They exist only to reinforce his chosen image. He will love you when you serve his illusion and despise you when you threaten it. He studies your weaknesses the way a sculptor studies stone, not to appreciate, but to shape. He will mimic empathy when it is useful, speak of loyalty when it benefits him, and discard both when they no longer serve his throne. The Stoic sees through this performance. He knows that admiration without virtue is slavery. He refuses to be an audience to arrogance, for the wise man does not feed another's vanity. He holds a mirror up to his own flaws instead. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when a man's thoughts revolve around his reflection, he loses all color but one, the dull, empty hue of self-obsession. The narcissist is never truly alive, for he lives only in perception. He builds castles of approval and crowns himself king of sand, and every grain he clutches is made from the attention of others. Not all evil seeks admiration. Some seek control. Where the narcissist craves worship, the predator craves submission. This is the one who senses vulnerability like a wolf senses blood. He studies silence, tests patience, and strikes only when the soul begins to doubt itself. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." But the predator turns this truth against others. He creates adversity to test your will, to see how far you bend before you break. He is polite in public, cruel in private. He wears patience as a mask and control as perfume. He feeds on dependency. Every kindness has strings. Every gift is a chain, and yet his greatest weapon is not cruelty, it is doubt. He convinces the strong that they are weak. He convinces the independent that they are indebted. He whispers that your freedom is selfishness, your boundaries are betrayal, and your peace is pride. The Stoic response is revelation, not rage, revelation. He sees through the illusion. He realizes that most chains are made of words, and words lose their power the moment you stop obeying them. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The predator of weakness cannot control what he cannot frighten, and he cannot frighten the man who has accepted loss, who no longer fears rejection, who knows that dignity is worth more than comfort. Freedom, then, begins with refusal. Not a scream, a calm no. Not rebellion, clarity. You simply stop dancing to the tune of the manipulator, and as you grow still, his music fades. When the narcissist and the predator meet, they recognize one another instantly. Dominion. They are often found in positions of leadership, in families, in faith, in politics. Anywhere power can hide behind purpose. They promise protection while stealing autonomy. They preach virtue while practicing control. They feed the illusion that obedience equals honor, and silence equals peace. But Marcus Aurelius shattered that lie long ago. A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions. And what greater ambition can there be than mastery of self, not of others? The Stoic stands alone not because he loves isolation, but because truth often finds itself outnumbered. He does not rebel with violence. He rebels by remaining unowned. He lets the powerful rage. He lets the deceivers boast. And when the storm is done, he is still there, unbroken, unbound. Ego burns fast. Control rots from within. But clarity, that endures. To live without the need to dominate or to be adored is to step out of the oldest traps of the human mind. Epictetus reminded us, what upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about things. And what upsets the egocentric and the manipulator most is the sight of someone who no longer responds. In that silence, evil meets its mirror, because the only thing it cannot control is peace. So how does the Stoic deal with the narcissist and the predator? Not by fighting them, for to fight is to join their game. Not by hating them, for hatred corrupts the hater. The Stoic defends with awareness, not aggression. He sets boundaries with grace. He uses distance as wisdom. He sees that those who demand worship are the most fragile. Those who crave control are the most fearful. And those who manipulate others are often slaves to the emotions they deny. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. He forgives but does not forget. He understands but does not return. He keeps his peace because peace is the ultimate authority. Your focus, your reaction, your soul. He practices humility not as weakness but as mastery. For the humble cannot be humiliated. The one who kneels to virtue fears no throne, and so he walks free, not untouched by evil, but unowned by it. Because true freedom is not escape, it is clarity under control. It is serenity amid noise. It is strength without show. Evil often disguises itself as greatness, but true greatness is silent. Evil demands attention. Virtue requires none. The narcissist shines to be seen. The Stoic glows to understand. There are men who lead through courage, and there are those who lead through fear. One inspires, the other manipulates. One lifts the spirit of others, the other binds them, quietly, invisibly, with strings made of anxiety. This is the puppeteer of fear, and beside him walks his perfect disguise, the mask of kindness. Fear is the oldest instrument of control. It built empires and destroyed them. It makes men kneel to false gods and betray their own souls, and the puppeteer knows this better than anyone. He does not raise a sword, so he raises doubt. He does not command through strength. He whispers insecurity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." But the puppeteer reverses this truth. He teaches others to fear living, to shrink from choice, to find safety not in freedom but in obedience. He speaks softly, but every word carries a hook. He rewards submission and disguises it as loyalty. He punishes independence and calls it betrayal. Fear becomes his empire, and the fearful his subjects. Fear, when weaponized, becomes architecture. It builds invisible prisons, walls made not of stone but of uncertainty, doors that exist only in the mind. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The puppeteer understands this perfectly. He knows that a frightened man will chain himself, that a mind filled with dread will obey before it is even commanded. He does not tell you you're weak. He makes you feel weak. He lets silence linger just long enough for your mind to invent your own punishment. And the more you imagine consequences, the tighter his hold becomes. Fear is imagination misused. It is the mind predicting pain that has not yet come, and often never will. Epictetus taught, "When we are no longer able to control events, we must learn to control ourselves." The puppeteer cannot control a Stoic, for the Stoic has already accepted loss. He does not cling to outcome. He clings only to virtue. To defeat fear, you must look it in the eye. You must learn its shape, name it, observe it. And when you do, it dissolves, because fear cannot survive the light of understanding. But not all evil is dark or loud. Sometimes it wears gentleness as armor. It arrives as compassion, speaks as care, and binds you not with threats, but with affection. This is the mask of kindness, the most dangerous disguise of all. She will help you only to own you. She will heal you only to remind you of your debt. Her warmth is currency. Her mercy, a leash. She will say, "I only want what's best for you." But the translation is, "I only want you to need me." Seneca wrote, "A gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver. True kindness frees. False kindness binds. The mask of kindness does not love you, it loves your gratitude. It wants your dependence, not your peace. For independence exposes the truth. Its compassion was never about you." Marcus Aurelius reminded, "When another does you wrong, remember that he acts out of ignorance of good and evil." So the Stoic does not hate false kindness. He sees it as a mirror of emptiness, a soul so desperate for control that it imitates care. True kindness gives without witness. It asked for nothing but the continuation of goodness. The Stoic gives and forgets. The false giver gives and tallies. That is how the heart reveals its truth. The marriage of fear and false kindness. When fear and false kindness unite, a dangerous illusion is born, one that has ruled nations and families alike. The people who promise protection often create the very dangers they claim to guard you from. The friend who insists you cannot live without them first convinces you that you are weak. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is the privilege of man to rise superior to pain and fear." But to the puppeteer, fear is not an obstacle, it's an opportunity. He will offer to save you from drowning in a river he himself stirred. The Stoic sees the pattern. He knows that help without freedom is not help. That compassion which requires submission is not virtue. It is control. Seneca warned, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." So, too, is the one who claims to know what's best for everyone. For such a person seeks not understanding, but dominance cloaked in benevolence. The Stoic does not reject help, but he tests its intention. He asks, "Does this gift make me freer or more dependent? Does this voice bring clarity or fear?" If the answer is the latter, he steps back, quietly, peacefully, completely. The Stoic liberation from control. The Stoic cannot be controlled because he does not fear loss. He has made peace with impermanence. He owns nothing that owns him. Epictetus taught, "Some things are in our control and others not." The puppeteer controls only what you refuse to understand. The mask of kindness controls only what you choose to idealize. But once you see clearly, their power collapses. When the world threatens, the Stoic responds, "I have faced myself. What else is there to fear? When the world flatters, he answers, I need no audience for virtue. And when both fear and flattery try to own him, he simply remains. This is not detachment, it is presence. It is mastery of attention, the ability to hear 1,000 voices and listen only to truth. It is seeing through masks but refusing to become cynical. Marcus Aurelius wrote, The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. And so the Stoic's calm becomes rebellion. His kindness, resistance. His silence, power. Fear is loud. Kindness is quiet. And evil always mistakes volume for victory. When you stand calm before fear, you win without fighting. When you love without owning, you shine without burning. When you understand, truly understand, you are free. There is no chain more powerful than fear, and no disguise more convincing than false kindness. But there is also no freedom greater than the one who sees both and smiles. There are men who deceive. There are men who manipulate. There are men who harm. But beyond them, beyond envy, beyond pride, beyond fear, there exists something darker. It does not seek gain. It does not seek revenge. It seeks only ruin. This is the soul that feeds on destruction. Evil at its purest is not passion, it is emptiness given form. It finds joy in tearing what others build, peace in the suffering of innocence, and meaning only in control or chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one, but the destroyer cannot. He has no self to be. He exists only through opposition, only through the reflection of others. He hates the light not because it blinds him, but because it reveals him. He fears love not because it wounds him, but because it exposes how hollow he truly is. Such a soul cannot build. It can only consume, and it consumes the very things that prove life still has meaning. Trust, faith, peace, hope. Seneca said, Every crime is born of weakness, and that is the secret few understand. Pure evil is not strength. It is decay pretending to be power. The destroyer breaks what he cannot understand. He mocks what he cannot create. He wounds what he cannot possess. Evil confuses noise with impact, but sound fades. Virtue does not. Destruction makes headlines, but peace outlives monuments. The Stoic knows this. He does not try to stop every storm. He does not chase every villain. He knows that time itself avenges truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, The universe is change. Life is opinion. The destroyer cannot comprehend this. He mistakes impermanence for defeat. He believes that to break something is to conquer it. But even ashes nourish the earth. Even ruin can become rebirth. Evil cannot win. It can only exhaust itself, because it creates nothing, and what cannot create must consume until nothing remains. And when nothing remains, it consumes itself. The Stoic meets evil not as a warrior, but as a witness. He does not hate it, for hatred gives it life. He does not fear it, for fear feeds its hunger. He looks upon it with stillness, and in that stillness, evil trembles. Marcus Aurelius wrote, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So he protects his mind and not his reputation, not his comfort, not his body, his mind. The destroyer can take everything external, but cannot touch what lies within the fortress of clarity. He knows that evil wins only when it makes the good abandon goodness. He knows that virtue means standing firm, even when the world calls virtue naive. Epictetus taught, It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. And so the destroyer never learns, for he believes his darkness is wisdom. But the Stoic continues learning patience, learning peace, learning the art of not being moved by chaos. The destroyer feeds on reaction, and in silence it starves. Evil devours until there is nothing left. And when nothing remains to destroy, it turns inward. It begins to consume itself. Its rage feeding on emptiness. Its deceit feeding on memory. Its loneliness devouring its own voice. Seneca said, No man can have a peaceful life who thinks too much about length or about others' tongues, or about what others are doing or thinking. Evil is the endless obsession with others. It is the refusal to look inward. It cannot survive self-reflection, because the moment it looks into itself it sees the void, and so it vanishes not by defeat, but by exposure. It dies not in battle but in understanding. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, "Today I will meet the meddling, the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful, the envious, the unsocial." He met them without hatred. He met them with preparation. He met them knowing that evil exists, and that knowing it exists is already victory. Soundscape. Birds begin to sing. The wind softens. The first sunlight stretches across the battlefield. The Stoic does not celebrate the fall of evil. He contemplates it. He understands that the end of destruction is not triumph, but renewal. Destruction clears the field. What grows there afterward is what defines humanity. Virtue grows in the soil of pain. Wisdom grows where illusions have burned. Peace grows where fear once ruled. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." So it is with the presence of evil. To face it, to endure it, to rise above it. That is how the soul becomes unbreakable. Evil exists to remind man of his power to choose, to respond with anger or with grace, to descend or to ascend, to mirror the darkness or to hold the light. The Stoic chooses light, not by pretending the world is good, but by remaining good despite the world. Evil never disappears entirely. It returns in new forms, new faces, new voices. But so does wisdom, so does strength, so does virtue. Each generation must choose its side, not through battle, but through awareness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." The destroyer digs outward, for power, for wealth, for dominance. The Stoic digs inward, for peace, for purpose, for mastery. The destroyer's empire crumbles with time. The Stoic's legacy endures through eternity. Evil wins only in the hearts of those who forget who they are. But the man who remembers and truly remembers, and that he governs his thoughts, his words, his reactions, that man cannot be conquered. He may lose wealth. He may lose reputation. He may even lose life, but he will never lose himself. The soul that feeds on destruction dies with time, but the soul that feeds on virtue lives forever. You have power over your mind and not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. No man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. Evil destroys itself. Virtue endures itself. And the mind that conquers both is free.